Is here to discuss these results. CNN polling and data guru Harry Enten is on the phone. Harry, looks to me last night like Senator Cornyn overperformed a bit on the GOP side. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. And Scott, we were literally talking before the break, and then just as we were going on, my crackpot producer comes over and shows to me, why are the prediction markets all of a sudden Cornyn jumping way up? Check out this headline from The Atlantic. Trump is expected to endorse Cornyn. So that is huge, huge, huge news. John Cornyn outperformed last night, getting the most votes, which is very much unlike what a lot of the polling data said. And Donald Trump likes a winner. And Donald Trump at this point, it seems to me, if this reporting is corroborated, is going to get behind John Cornyn, which would be absolutely huge news for Republicans nationwide, because Cornyn is seen as the more electable candidate come the fall against Talarico.
Well, this is breaking news if, in fact, this comes to pass. So I guess the question here would be, does Ken Paxton continue? It would be difficult, I think, for him to defeat John Cornyn if President Trump is fully behind the incumbent senator.
I believe that it would be very difficult, and in fact, I have it right here. If you look at the Trump Truth Social, his Truth, essentially that he says that whomever he doesn't endorse should drop out, and that would make it very, very difficult for Ken Paxton or whomever does not get the endorsement, which we expect to be Paxton. We expect that the endorsement probably goes to Cornyn if The Atlantic is correct. That would make things very difficult for Ken Paxton to go on. And again, that is just such big news for the Republican Party, because Cornyn is seen as the far more electable candidate come the fall, and Republicans want to be able to hold on to that seat.
Yeah, massive amount of resources already spent on this Republican primary. If Trump comes in and Paxton drops out, that would save the GOP a lot of money. On the Democratic side, Talarico pulled away from Crockett at the end of the race. Tell us about the primary dynamics here that ultimately put Talarico out on top and the nomination outright.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different dynamics. Boy, that was a very, as someone who sort of sits back and watches these things, a very fun primary, insofar as obviously Jasmine Crockett was the national name, right? Really anti-Trump, big support within the African-American community. And James Talarico is a state legislator. No one had really heard of him until relatively recently. He had gone on the Joe Rogan show. He was, seen as this dynamic speaker, from Austin, the whole situation. And essentially, Talarico was able to put together a coalition of white liberals, Latinos. That was the key question. Could he win Latinos over? He did seem to do that based upon the county level results, the precinct level results. And then what you saw was that Jasmine Crockett still held on to that black vote. And I think the big question for Democrats, especially if Cornyn is the nominee, is whether or not they can come together as a party and actually give Cornyn a run for his money. We'll just have to wait and see. But obviously, it was a very nasty primary. There was a third candidate, Colin Eldrad, who was a former congressman who's again running for Congress, who had endorsed Crockett. Kamala Harris had been behind Crockett. But Talarico had run, by most people's metrics, a much more aggressive and better campaign, no doubt helped out by that interview with Stephen Colbert that didn't air on network, and then, of course, on CBS, and they claimed that there was censorship, and then aired on YouTube, and they got a whole lot of press out of that.
Yeah, they claimed that. It wasn't true, but they certainly claimed that.
They claimed it.
They claimed it. That's right. We got 30 seconds, Harry. One other thing that happened in Texas last night, Congressman Dan Crenshaw lost his primary, and lost it rather handily, didn't he?
He lost it very handily. That was one of the biggest shockers of the night. Trump withheld his endorsement there. Ted Cruz got behind Crenshaw's challenger, and I think it just shows that Ted Cruz, still a big name in Texas politics, and if you don't get Trump's endorsement in a Republican primary, especially if you're incumbent, you can wave adios amigos, goodbye, see you later. Trump still is the heart of the GOP.
That's Harry Enten from CNN. Harry, thanks for analyzing last night's primary results. We expect to hear from you throughout the year as we track the midterm elections. When we come back after this break, legendary basketball coach Bruce Pearl joins the show. It's Common Sense for the American People. I'm Scott Jennings in New York City. Stay with us. You don't want to miss a thing.